has vaccine distribution actually been affected by this wicked winter weather that we're seeing affect 140 million people?
Well, it's always something. People have put a lot of hard work and effort and anxiety into getting their vaccine appointments ready, and now they've been canceled in a lot of places because of this extreme weather. Obviously, that's disappointing personally for a lot of people, but more importantly, it sets back programs in big states like Texas and everywhere else really across the country. Because when one set of vaccine issues are canceled, everybody gets backed up. So we've got to be prepared. We have to make sure that people get rescheduled as quickly as possible, because now that finally people are excited about getting the vaccine, that vaccine skepticism is being tamped down, and it's about time. People need to know when and where they can get vaccinated, what group of priority patients they belong to. So these types of cancellations are going to be disappointing personally. And on a broader level, we've got to make sure that everything gets rescheduled promptly so people recognize they can get vaccinated and have faith in the system.
And we have hit a roadblock there. But in general, how do you feel about the vaccine rollout?
It's getting better. Obviously, we did wondrous things relative to getting the vaccines invented and through the FDA and manufactured and delivered, and we completely dropped the ball on logistics. So shame on us, and there's a lot of blame to go around, to be sure. But things are turning around. We are getting product out to hospitals and large vaccination centers and pharmacies, ultimately to doctors' offices as well. The Biden administration has purchased a few 100 million more doses. The president said yesterday that by midsummer we should have enough vaccinations in place for everybody, and that's cause for celebration. Now people need to make sure that they do the right thing. Don't jump to the line. We don't need any vaccine Karenism going on here. Sure. Follow the rules, and we will all get vaccinated in due course, and we'll see the back end of this pandemic sooner rather than later.
And what about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine as we wait for that approval?
I'm very excited to see the data on the J&J vaccine for lots of reasons, not the least of which is that it is a single dose. Obviously, the numbers relative to effectiveness are not going to be as amazing as either the Pfizer or the Moderna vaccines that are upwards of 95%. It looks like the Johnson & Johnson vaccine will be somewhere in the mid-60s. And that's okay because, those types of rates are still excellent. It's not like school where a 65 is a C and a 95 is an A. Really, anything above 60% is an A and excellent. And when people ask me, well, Peter, which vaccine should I ask for? My answer is first available. That's what I think for everybody else. That's what I think for myself and my family. Don't be picky. If the vaccines pass FDA muster, which the J&J vaccine has not yet done, but it'll be soon to be scrutinized by the FDA and the FDA advisory committee. Don't be finicky. Take the vaccine that's available to you as soon as possible. And again, the value of the J&J vaccine is that it's a single dose versus 2 doses, which means you reach significant immunity faster. So a lot of good things going on.
And what about the development of having these vaccines available for those who are under 17? I find this to be a fascinating topic, but I understand that research is still being done on that. But what does that timeline kind of look like right now?
Well, people say, well, why don't we have more data on kids, on people under 18? And the answer is, it's hard to recruit children to be in clinical trials. There are ethical issues, risks involved. Sure. So those things are happening, but people recognize we have to have the data. We can't just extrapolate downwards, which we can do. I mean, the data is very robust, but better to have actually people in the clinical trials who are exactly those people you want to measure, in this case, children. So once we have that data, we'll move forward. But I think that clearly children are going to be the lowest priority because they are the ones least likely to suffer serious manifestations. So when you think about school, for example, in my opinion, we need to get teachers vaccinated, people that work in schools vaccinated as early as possible, because they're the ones at risk more so than the students. But clearly, we want data on kids. We want to get them vaccinated as quickly as possible, and that's ongoing.
And as we also kind of shift back to what's happening across the South and several other states with power outages and this deadly cold, how can people who need to shelter with others remain safe with the inability to necessarily stay 6 feet apart during this pandemic?
Well, the surprising good news here is that we've had practice quarantining. Yeah. Whoever thought we'd be able to say that we're a practiced quarantine society? We have to do exactly what we've been doing before: maintain social distance, wear masks if we're outside of our pod group, and practice enhanced personal hygiene. So it's really no different than when we were quarantining last year. Unfortunately, now we're doing it because of the weather. I guess the good news is we get to spend more time together and stay warm together. But again, protocols are important. If you're going to socialize outside of your household, stay within your pod group and just do the right thing. Be smart. Mask. In fact, I'm double masking these days because of the other variants of the virus that are floating around.
Yeah, we've seen that double masking certainly does help. You have the surgical mask and then you can have your cloth mask above that. Now, as we talk about cases going down, what is your warning to people about how those numbers can cause a knee-jerk reaction and push people back to going back to normal too soon? Because that's not what they should be doing, correct?
That's exactly right. I mean, obviously, there are two sets of numbers to look at. One are infection rates, and the second are deaths. So clearly, goal number one is to not let people die, to keep them alive. And certainly the vaccine protocols are, top tool there. But we have to recognize that just because people are staying alive and people with serious manifestations can be treated with new types of therapeutics does not mean that we can let our guard down, most specifically that we can take our masks off. The virus remains highly contagious. The new variants are super contagious. So we have to recognize that even though we may be vaccinated, we can still spread the disease. So, the saying now is the same as it was early in the pandemic, which is to be a victor, not a vector. Don't be part of the problem, be part of the solution. Keep that mask on.
Peter Pitts, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on NBCLX.
My pleasure. Thank you.